My name is Meg Bahara. I am the varsity girls lacrosse coach over at TMI. Technology is also not my strong suit, so bear with me here. Let's see. Can everybody see that there? Perfect. Okay. So what I'm going to talk about today is a zone defense and maintaining a positive team environment. So this is one of my favorite statistics ever. I tell the girls this, and anytime I coach any girls, I tell them this, that 94% of women in C-suite positions played sports at the collegiate and high school level, which I think is awesome. It really tells the girls that this is important, that not only for, they're building their sports and building their ability to play and all that, but building their confidence as women and as people, especially when it comes to being in the workforce. A little bit about myself. I'm a recent Texas resident. I'm from Jersey. I'm an occupational therapist, so I work at one of the hospitals down here. And I can, my boss is awesome and lets me switch my schedule. So I come in really early and then I am able to head to practice, which is great. For my lacrosse background, I've been playing since I come from a lacrosse family. My father played at college. My brother played, my cousins, all of us played, and I've been playing since I was about 5. I played lacrosse at the University of Scranton. It's a D3 school. It was the best OT program, and that's something that I really harp on. I really drive home the fact that you are a student athlete, not an athlete student. I've been coaching for over 10 years, and I've sent girls to play at Harvard and Yale and all these big schools that they would not have necessarily gotten into if they were just students alone. That student athlete really sets them apart. My playing career was cut short due to an injury, but those that can't do coach. So I became a coach and I've been doing it ever since, and it's really is one of my favorite things. All right. So my girls, we play what's called a zone backer defense. Oop, sorry, what did I do? I pressed the wrong button. Sorry. Um, Give me one moment. Can you guys see that? Yeah? Okay. I guess I just can't see it. Okay. Um, so like I said, so I play a zone backer defense. So what that means, it's a pretty high level defense and it requires a lot of movement, a lot of mobility, and a lot of, just each player playing their own space. So a lot of times girls are taught how to play a man defense, right? So with that being said, they, are sticking to one player and they're watching that player and they're covering that player the entire time. With a zone backer defense, these girls are playing in their own space. Okay, and they are able to then, have their own area, and then once that player gets back into that area, the offensive player, then the girls are able to cover that own space. What really sets a zone backer defense, or a rover defense, you'll also hear it called. What really sets that apart is that it really allows the girls to be aggressive. So, and make the offense make the mistake, right? And that's really something that I tell my girls all the time, because when they're playing defense, right, it's hard, right? Girls, offenders are fast, they're quick, they move the ball well. Defense is oftentimes at a disadvantage, right? And so this allows the girls to, and saying, phrasing it in the way that making the offense make the mistake, it's allowing the girls to have those small wins, have those, making, and I tell them all the time, I'm like, as soon as you make a girl switch from her right hand to her left, or turn, or dodge, or do something, the likelihood of that player making a mistake is so much higher than if you were to just stand there and, just be a body, right? And with that number seven down there, that is our backer, right? So that person is following the ball wherever that ball is. And, obviously in that depiction there, she's inside the eight. We all know got to be outside the eight. But whenever the ball's up top, so whenever the ball is up high, or with anybody, the player that is in their zone, I tell them to pressure that girl, make that girl uncomfortable, make that person nervous, right? Make them have to make that mistake. Because if you get beat, your teammate is right there to back you up, right? So it allows them to kind of build that confidence and it allows them to be like, you know what? Like I can do this. I can, let me try. Let me see what I can do. Let me give this girl a little bit more pressure. And you know what? If I get beat, it doesn't matter because I know my girl is right behind me here and she can support me. And I teach my girls aggression is fine. Lacrosse, so many people that don't know the game of lacrosse are like, all they do is blow the whistle. Blah, blah, blah. There's foul every 2 seconds. Blah, 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 right? I see all you guys smile. They don't know that there is a nuance to it and there is a specific way to do it. And sometimes, the whistle gets blown and whatever. But oftentimes that foul is outside the 12 or in between the 12 and the 8 and it's not in that critical scoring area. So it's no big deal. I kind of let the girls play, obviously nothing dangerous or nothing of that nature, but when it does happen, it's no big deal. You know what I mean? And the girls find that the girls kind of find that comforting. They find the fact that, okay, I can make this mistake and Coach Meg's not going to get mad at me or I'm not going to put the girl on the 8 meter for my goalie to deal with an 8 meter or anything like that. So it gives them a little bit more of a sense of security, which is really, really nice. All right. I can do questions now about the zone or I can do them at the end, whatever you guys want.
Hey Meg, what do you look for when you're trying to figure out what person you want as that backer?
Athleticism. Athleticism. I can teach anybody how to catch and throw and pass and shoot and whatever. I cannot teach you to be fast. I cannot teach you to anticipate. I cannot teach you to be explosive. I can't teach that. You know what I mean? So I find that player on my team and that's who I put it as that number seven.
Thank you.
Yeah. Callie, you better not steal this and use it when we play each other.
You can stop that for me when I speak.
Any other questions about the zone? I have a kind of a more of a detailed screen next slide. But any other questions about that? And then one thing too that I really like to focus on is playing behind. So when the ball goes behind my 5 and 6 back there, I teach them to double. A lot of times in girls lacrosse, when we have a player that's not as strong, we'll kind of hide them on offense, right? We'll hide them back. And especially, and the girls kind of do that too, naturally. The girls will kind of stick back and hang back and go in that lower position because the girls that are not as confident feel much safer back there, right? And I tell my girls to exploit that. I tell my girls, if you see a girl back there and she looks scared to catch the ball. She looks not as confident. She hasn't really driven. We're in the second quarter and she doesn't really do too much. She doesn't really do a whole lot there. I tell 5 and 6, absolutely get her. Absolutely double her. And then I tell them to use, back there you have that end line. That end line is your third defender, right? That crease, also another defender. And then I'll have my goalie kind of cheat out and just be there to intercept that pass. And 7 can come down to the side that the goalie's not on and use that as well to kind of intercept that pass. So those are really my key points there. And then two, I always have at least one or two girls, depending on who we're playing and how we're doing and my legs that I have. I'll have two girls up at the restraining line. And if when it gets down to it, sometimes one or two can really push that girl up towards that restraining line, especially on smaller fields. And those girls, my attack players that are behind the restraining line can also get involved. So this is something that is super, super helpful and can really bring a lot of players into this defense that would not necessarily be involved. Right. I'm trying to go to my next slide, but it's not. Hold on, let me stop sharing 1 second and let me go back. Um, I don't know where my. Give me 1 moment. Sorry, everybody. I don't know where my presentation went. Oh, there it is. Okay. So sorry. All right. Let me go back to sharing my screen. Okay, okay. All right. Everyone can see that again? Sorry. All right. So my key components of that zone. So like the question that Callie asked before, athletes using athleticism to your advantage. I can teach anybody to catch and throw, shoot, whatever. I cannot teach you those raw athletic skills. What it does, it really puts the defense in control. It allows your defenders to apply pressure without that fear of getting beat, like I mentioned before. One of the most important aspects of this zone is communication. That is the only way that it works. If the girls are communicating and the girls are telling, saying, I have this, I'm here, I have two, because oftentimes there's going to be like a 3-on-2 situation or a 4v3, whatever it is, because there is that backer, and one girl is always going to have two. If they communicate, it is so easy. And one thing that a lot of teams like to do to try and break the zone, you'll hear it referred to, is that they're like, oh, well, why can't I just put a girl right in the middle? Why can't I put an offender right in the middle of the eight and just stand there? As long as everybody's coming across, you know, if, oops, oops. If three is coming across and four is coming across, five's coming up, six is coming up, even two's coming down, one's coming down to cover, it makes that girl in the middle completely obsolete. And, with all those bodies in there looking for those feeds is going to be even more difficult anyway. So, it's as long as girls are communicating and talking about who has what cutter and passing each other off and everything like that, it is super, super effective. And accountability. The only way this actually works is if everybody works together. Each player needs to do their part, play their role in order for the zone to be successful. So if one piece is broken, the zone is not going to hold up and it crumbles pretty quickly. But the good thing about it is as soon as, goals are going to happen, right? There's never girls lacrosse is a high scoring game, right? So when goals happen, you can usually see where the break in the zone was, whether it was the elbow, whether it was down low, whether it was the back or whatever it is. I tell my girls to huddle up after each goal, talk about it, and then fix it. So you can always see the fix that needs to happen. So it's pretty good like that. I have a little or excuse me, so important takeaways here. This is a high level college defense. This is what I played in college. Um, it is hard to master and can fall apart. So no, like, the girls always talk about, they're like, oh, Coach Meg, like this is hard. Like, well, I've never done this. This is especially last year when I first implemented it, because this is my second year coaching the TMI girls. They were like, oh, I've never done this. I didn't know how this works. So I always reiterate that this is a high level defense and this is a harder concept and requires a lot of moving parts. And, the girls understand that and they try every time to just fix it and make it as best as possible. Like I said, I really cannot emphasize this enough, how important communication is with this zone, because without communication, it literally will never work. Um, and confident players allow for a stronger zone. Like I said, having number one pressure out and, try and get that girl to change hands, change positions, do different things. That's the more confident you get as a defender, the easier this becomes, because the more one pressure's up high, the more time that they have until seven is needed, right? Because seven really tries to stay around that zone, or excuse me, around that 8 meter. All right, and this is just a quick little a quick little video here so I can show you guys how like in like a real game here. And it's just like a 1 minute video. Let me get this going. All right. And I'll take the sound off because you really don't need to hear it. But you'll see the girl in the middle as the backer or the rover is what is sometimes it's called. So you can just see like the chaos that it brings, right? And you can just see, you know, even when those passes are brought in, because right here on this side we have a 3v2 situation right here. And 15 for you for if you guys can't tell, she's the backer right there. The guy will put some circles around and everything where you can see, or 16, excuse me. So there's that talking about going back behind and pressuring that girl down low and using that sideline or using that end line to your advantage. Here's that offset, right? Where there's two girls there's two offenders per one defender, right? She's going to pressure out outside the 12. Our backer, she's on the other side following the most dangerous girl, but she's going to pop back over. And what is a 3v2 quickly becomes a 3v3. There's that anticipation, right? Deflects a little bit faster, same thing. You can kind of just see how it is there. All right. Any questions on the zone? All right. All right. I'll go back to sharing my screen here and we will. So, my next thing that I wanted to talk about is maintaining a good team environment. All right. So they're girls, right? They're high school girls. They're mean. They're gonna say some things to each other. They're not gonna like this person for, whatever the stupid high school reason is. We're all there. We all dealt with it, I'm sure. So, I understand that and I kind of accept that and I I don't try and stop that because it is what it is, right? Girls are going to say mean, hurtful things and, it just kind of is what it is. But my job, I feel responsible in, creating a safe and judgment-free space for those girls, right? And on any team, right, you have girls that don't necessarily hang out outside of school or they don't run in the same circles in the school, right? So making sure that when they're on the field, when they're at practice, when they're around each other, that it is a safe and like judgment-free space. It doesn't matter if someone, they've never talked to, they never done, they don't to the same lunch table, anything like that. One thing that I also really focus on is addressing the girls as equals and in a group, right? So when one girl is, making comments that are not necessarily constructive or something, at the end of every practice, I bring the girls together, we all talk, we talk about how it was, how this went or whatever. And I always, that's when I address those issues. That's when I say, okay, during every practice, we need to make sure that we're using constructive criticism to talk to one another. It's not, oh, you know, you did this bad or you did that bad or anything like that. And, I'll have my captains tell me like, oh, so and so is, not getting along with this person or so and so said this. And that's really when I address those issues is in a group. I make sure every practice to lead with positivity, encouragement, as well as providing constructive criticism, right? Um, I make sure that, I tell them, you're doing a good job like this, but we need to practice this. Lacrosse is hard. There's a lot of, you have to be able to catch, throw, and pick up a ball on the ground in order for you to like remotely be able to step on a field. And I tell my girls that, right? A lot of as being down here, a lot of people didn't grow up playing lacrosse, right? They don't know it's a lot of their first times playing. So I really reiterate that and I tell them, and I'll use other sports as examples and I'll say, like, listen, soccer, all you have to really do is be able to kick a ball, right? You don't have to be able to catch and throw and pick up a ball from the ground, right? So I use other sports that they've played. A lot of them are runners. And say all you have to be able to do is run to be able to be good at running, right? Or cross country or track, whatever you're doing. And they find that to be helpful. They find that to be a really digestible thing for them to understand and be like, you know what, like I am doing better. I am practicing. I caught 5 passes in a row today, and yesterday I only caught three. So using that as well as providing constructive criticism. I I am not afraid to tell the girls what they're doing wrong, how to fix it, and using leading by examples, right? As soon as something happens, they do something wrong, I'll blow my whistle and I'll say, Callie, you did this wrong, and I'm not picking on you, but you're the first one I saw do it. That's why I'm stopping right now. You know what I mean? Just doing stuff like that. I encourage the girls to give me feedback after usually like in the middle of the season, I say, hey girls, everybody write on a sheet of paper. Tell me one thing that I can do better, right? Because I'm not perfect. I know that. And, sometimes the girls will, hey, Coach Meg, I wish you could do this better, or this, I don't understand when you say this, or, this is confusing to me. And giving them a little bit of anonymity when doing that makes them feel more comfortable. One thing that I do after every single game and will continue to do for the rest of time is I go around and I point out one thing that each girl did well. So we all are in our little post-game huddle and I start on one end and I go all the way down to the other end. And after every time, every girls we or all the girls we all clap and support. And sometimes, it's a little difficult to come up with things that someone did really well, especially someone that's not, super involved in a lot of plays or anything like that. But making sure that I always have at least one good positive thing to say about every player. And, it's not as hard as you think. I talk about oh, you did a great job of your off-ball movement, right? And then I'll say like, but next time I want to see you catch a pass. I want to see you take a shot. I want to see you drive. And they all find that pretty encouraging and pretty exciting. I really listen to my girls. I listen to their concerns. I listen to what they're talking about, during games. I listen or during practice and games. I listen to the way that my captains or my older players instruct the newer players. And I really, when they talk to me, when they ask me a question, I really listen to them and I want to hear their concerns. And, whenever they do come to me with anything, I make it a point to focus with them and treat them how I would want to be treated. Handling conflicts between the teammates and girls, and I address everything as a group to really ensure carryover. So, like I said, they're high school girls, so sometimes they have little spats and whatever. So I make it a point to speak with both of them or however many of the girls are involved. And I do it and I remove them from the group. I'll do it after practice and I'll say, hey, you know, you and Callie, sorry, Callie, you're next to me. That's why that's why I keep picking your name.
All good.
Meg and Callie, you guys have been going through it. Why don't you guys come and talk to me afterwards and then we'll resolve the issues there. And then whatever the larger conflict is, whether it's oh, Callie never passes me the ball, or Meg never passes Callie the ball, whatever it is, you know, I bring that up at the end of practice or the next practice or whenever it is. And I say, listen, girls, we have to make sure that we are passing the ball to everybody. You know, Some of my stronger players, you might not think that Callie will catch it, but you know what? That's the only way that she's going to learn, right? That's the only way that everybody's going to practice and everyone's going to get better. And we need to do a better job of doing that, especially in practice, and kind of go from there. And my last thing that I really do is I make sure that the girls can come to me with anything. Girls, they have a lot going on. They're high school kids. They have sports and classes and school and friends and boyfriends and girlfriends and whatever. And I make sure that I create an environment where they feel like they can tell me things and they can tell me like, hey, Coach Meg, like, this happened to me the other day, and or my friends were talking about this, and it made me really uncomfortable. Like, I don't know what that is, and they've come to me about like drinking at parties and stuff, and said to girl like Coach Meg, like, I didn't really know what to do. Like, do I tell my parents? Like, what do I do? And giving them advice and stuff like that, that's something that I'm comfortable with. Not all coaches are, but letting the girls know that they can come to me with any of those things and that I create a safe environment for them to do that. And then obviously I let them know like, hey, I'm gonna have to bring this up to your parents, or I think you should talk to your parents. And I let them know that I'm gonna do that to not break any of their trust or anything like that. All right. Just some kind of key points here. So nothing is perfect, right? So accepting that there will be arguments that but we'll be able to overcome them as a group. Winning is not everything, and nothing is ever their fault, ever. Like I've been on teams where the girls like, oh my God, can you believe that our goalie let that shot in and that's how we lost? I'm like, no, the ball had to go through 10 other people before it got to the goalie. I said, it's not her fault, right? And making sure that the girls never, no one girl ever feels blame for anything. It's very easy for girls to blame, the girl that they don't like, or the goalie, or the last girl that got beat, or it's very easy for them to blame one person, and I make sure that that is never ever ever the case. I like I always say, like, it's had to go through 11 other people before it got to you. You know what I mean? There's no reason that it's one person's fault. And they're high school kids. Give them a little grace. They come to me and I see them and they're like, "Oh my God, Coach Meg, I have 4 tests and a project and this and that and this and that." And I don't know about you guys, but I feel like my high school kids right now, I'm like, I did not have this much work in high school or anything, this many responsibilities. So I give them a little grace and I tell them like, hey, listen, if you need to take a day and you need to just get your schoolwork done and you cannot come to practice, it's a Wednesday practice. We'll live. If that's what makes them feel better and makes them feel, more successful in all of the things on their plate, that's how I look at it. All right. Any questions? Anything you guys have for me about anything that I talked about, anything like that?
I
Uh,
do. Do you do anything like preseason, like beforehand to get them like bonded or just leading into the season as far as like that team camaraderie?
Yeah, so that sounds funny, but we sit down and we all make a team playlist together.
Fun.
And because they always have like their music on and whatever, so we all sit down and we have a team playlist. And because everyone likes a little different music and everything, so we that's something that we do together. Before our first game, I host at the school or wherever, but we'll do like a pasta party. So we'll do, or like, I'll do like pizzas and whatever. And we all sit around a big table. I make sure that we're all together. And that is something we did that for the first time last year. And like I said, I always have the girls give me feedback. And like 4 feedback cards were like, more pasta parties. I was like, okay. So that is something that, they really seem to enjoy. And, I bring everything. We just all sit around and just, hang out. And I like to do it. I invite the parents, of course, but usually the girls are all separate and the parents are kind of off to the side.
Awesome. Thanks.
Yeah. What else we got?
I got a question for you, Meg. I don't have as much awareness as far as like your numbers as a program, but like as a newer program, like how are you like I guess making sure that your program exists, or you communicate that so you can maybe get either more girls out and from your school to come out to the sport, or like what does that look like to help establish and make your program flourish?
So, great question. That's actually definitely one of the most difficult pieces of running a new program. I rely a lot on the girls. I tell them, I'm like, bring your friends, and I have kind of like, especially during in the beginning, I have like a really open practice policy, and I'm like, hey, if your friend wants to come, and I keep a bunch of sticks, like extra sticks in my car and goggles, so they don't have to worry about like, oh, I don't have this, I don't have that, So I'm like, bring your friends, bring your lunch table, just have them come see what it's like. And like during preseason this year, we had 20 girls, and I lost seven from last year. So I was able, and I had 16. So I had like nine returning, and then I was able to get 11 for preseason. And then during other sports and stuff, obviously, once that starts up, they kind of fall off. They go to track, they go to softball, they go, to their respective sports. But I've had three girls be like, you know what, Coach Meg, like, I really, everyone says how fun it is. Like, I think I want to play next year. And I'm like, great. So, I use preseason as kind of an open policy to let anybody come and, you know, practice and see what it's like to be around the girls and do stuff like that. But I rely a lot on the girls. I joke around with them and I'm like, okay, everyone has to bring one friend to practice. This is, like, and they do it. And the girls, like, I have one girl who was a hockey player, and she's like, this is so fun. This is just like hockey. I'm like, well, kind of, but using those girls and using my team and my captains and my older girls to help bring and maintain players coming. But that's definitely one of the most difficult things.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah. What else we got? Well, all right, Callie, I will officially turn it over to you. Sorry for using you the whole time.
Thanks, Meg. Appreciate it.
Yeah, of
Real,
course.
is it